Hi everyone, it's Danny, and today I'm gonna show you my technique of saving Oncidium type orchids without roots, or with very few roots. It's basically the same thing. So first of all, how do we know that our orchid might have a serious problem with the root system? Because the flower looks very good. Well, first off, we need to take a look at the pseudobulbs. If they are wrinkly, no matter how much we water, we might have a problem with the root system. Also, if the orchid is very wobbly in the pot, things are pretty clear. There is a problem with the root system and we need to intervene. And by intervening, I mean repot this orchid and take a look at the root system. So first thing, we'll need a sharp scissors that we need to sterilize. I usually spray it with alcohol and then flame it. Be extra careful when you're doing this. Anything that is sprayed with alcohol will catch fire. So don't spray it on your fingers, and also hold the scissors by its handle. After this, the scissors will be pretty hot, so be careful not to burn yourself. Now put on some gloves. This will protect you against splinters. Now whether we like it or not, flower spikes and flowers drain a lot of energy from our orchid, and they need to go. Use your scissors to cut the flower spike as close to the base of the orchid as possible. If the orchid has a flower spike only with buds, that one needs to go as well, unfortunately. If you leave the flower spikes on, there's no guarantee your orchid will make it, and the flowers might probably not last too long. Now it's time to remove the orchid from the pot. Gently squeeze the pot and take out the orchid. Never ever reuse old media, so everything needs to go into the trash bin. Old media can be breaking down or harbor pests. I can already see some snail damage. The root tips look like they have been munched off. So there's no way I'm ever using that old media again. I also like to sterilize my working tray with alcohol, and this is because spores of fungus as well as snail eggs might still be left there. After removing as much of the old media as possible from the root system, it's time to wash this orchid at the faucet. This will remove any old media left and also clean up the roots. Now looking at this orchid, I can see that after watering, the roots on the top green up. This means they are definitely alive, so I'll make sure not to cut anything that is green. As for the other roots, it can be tricky. The only way to know is if you press on them. If they are firm, they're alive, but if they're mushy and they seem papery and wet at the same time, they are definitely dead. So inspect the remaining root system and cut away everything that's mushy. Another way to figure out if a root is dead is by pulling on it. If the outer coat comes off and all that's left is a string like a wire, that root needs to be cut off because it's certainly dead. A healthy root would never shed its velamen like that. If you find a root that seems to be firm at the base, you can cut away only the dead part. So this is what I'm left with, but it's very optimistic. I assure you that 50% of those roots will not make it, but at this point I'm not sure which one. So I'm just gonna leave them to give a better chance to this orchid. Next thing I like to do is to remove any dried material, like dried leaves and so on. In time they will decay and spoil the media. Also, they can harbor pests, so it's a good idea to remove them as much as possible. After cleanup, it's time to disinfect the root system. I use hydrogen peroxide 3%, which I pour into the spray bottle. Spray the entire root system as best as you can. This will kill off any remaining pests like snails and also limit fungus. I also like to spray in between pseudobulbs and into all the small crevices because this is the place where snails usually hide. And I can assure you, if you're left with only one snail in the pot, your orchid is in serious trouble because all the new roots might be eaten up. Now it's time to pot the orchid. I usually use clear plastic pots because I can see the roots growing. I also add additional ventilation holes. This keeps me safe from root rot. As for the media, you can use your preferred mixture according to your environment. For me, the mixture of bark and sphagnum moss seems to do perfect for Oncidiums. Start by placing a layer of media into the pot, and then try to place the orchid inside and stabilize it as you go, adjusting the height. Hold the orchid with one hand and try to place the media around the orchid. You can also press on the media on the sides of the pot, but very gently so you don't disturb or damage the remaining root system. Squeezing the pot, tapping the pot will also make the media go downwards. The pseudobulbs of the orchid need to be on top of the media so you avoid rotting. But at this point, you can adjust the height of the orchid as you go. Because the orchid doesn't have roots or simply has too few roots, you need to stabilize it. I usually use the stakes they come with. Insert the stake somewhere near a pseudobulb. Then pin the top of the pseudobulbs to the stake. You can use a zip tie or whatever you have around the house. Just don't squeeze the orchid. To promote some root growth, I like to place a layer of sphagnum moss on top, which will retain more moisture, thus providing a more humid environment for the new roots that will come. If you don't like sphagnum moss or you simply don't have it available, you can do only with bark, but you will need to water more frequent. After all of this is done, I like to water my orchid. I know people on the internet say it's a bad thing, but honestly, I've never had trouble, and I'm pretty sure that 2 weeks without any water will actually kill the orchid. Now, because the orchid does not have any roots at the bottom of the pot, you will notice that the pot will dry out more on the top than on the bottom. So what I do is spray the sphagnum moss layer on top every few days or whenever it's dry, and I soak the entire pot when the bottom of the pot is dried as well. If you don't have the layer of sphagnum moss on top, it's okay, all you need to do is spray the layer of bark on the top. I think you need to do this every day because bark dries up very fast. Place the orchid in a bright location because it is an Oncidium and it likes bright light. I don't agree with the fact that you should keep it in the dark, because the darker it is, the slower the orchid grows, and at this point I want a fast-growing orchid. Of course, don't place it in hot blazing sun, this will scorch any orchid. A bright location, without noon direct sun, is what she needs right now. Okay, so this is my method of saving orchids. As you see, it's pretty simple. It doesn't require bags or anything like that, simply because I am lazy. And of course, because it works without them. All you need to do is provide humidity for your orchid at this point and make sure that you don't place it in a too hot or too cold environment. I have quite a few orchids saved this way, so I'm pretty confident in my method. Although, not all individuals will survive. Just like with humans, some individuals might actually be too weak to survive. And that's the sad truth, but most of the time they do bounce back. Orchids are really tough little fellas. So okay, hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more videos from me, don't forget to subscribe. You can also leave me your questions and suggestions in a comment below. And thank you so much for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye!